All right, this afternoon we're talking about blades. Why should you bring a knife to a gunfight? So that's typically correct. I first started carrying a blade in my everyday carry when I got my handgun license, back in the 90s in Texas. And I bought that so that I could retain my weapon. So this knife is actually the original Benchmade advanced folding combat knife. This knife has been on my person for many, many years, since the 1990s. This is the very first version. Benchmade has a great, they have a great warranty. They have a lifetime guaranteed sharpening, and when you send your knife in, they don't just sharpen it, they don't just polish it, they rebuild it. This knife's been rebuilt 3 times by Benchmade, because it's been used a lot, mainly opening boxes, cutting string, cleaning fish, cleaning doves, you know. Sometimes I've used it in butchering and preparing venison, but typically I use a bigger knife. Why do I need this on my person besides all those other things? Is if somebody makes a grab for my gun, I have a less lethal, it's still a lethal weapon, but it's a little safer to use in close quarters, that makes sure I retain my firearm and it doesn't end up in their hands. So that's why I bought that. Now the next knife I'd like to show you, here it is. The next knife I'd like to show you is also a Benchmade. This is my newest purchase. You might have saw this in my recent video. This knife, forget the name of it. It's got some weird name. It's not even on here. But it was designed by a guy named Seibert for Benchmade. This is a full tang knife. Why do I need this knife? This knife is for self-defense, but this knife is also for woodworking in a bush environment, or a bushcrafting knife. A true bushcrafting knife probably wouldn't have these cross blades. It would probably have a slightly different blade shape. The blade would come down more quickly and have less of a point. So this is kind of a compromise knife. It's for bushcrafting. This is my companion knife, the one I would take into the woods with me, although it's brand new. I will say I sliced some roasts into steak in the kitchen the other day, and oh my God, this is the sharpest knife I have ever had in my hands. And it's just like a razor, and it's nearly a 1/4 inch thick steel. And yeah, this is a quality piece of cutlery right here. Now we enter the realm of a bit of fantasy here, and I'll show you the third knife I own. So that's not a knife. That is a knife. Technically it's a machete. This is the cold steel Gladius. This machete was designed to replicate many of the characteristics of the famous Roman short sword that conquered the world before firearms. This is primarily a thrusting weapon, although this works really well as a slashing weapon as well. This really I purchased mainly for self-defense. Why did I feel like I needed a sword? Why would you bring a knife to a gunfight? Why does the Civil War and this sword have anything to do with anything? Well, I've talked about in previous episodes how I believe that ammunition's going to run out. So you're going to face these things on the street. This piece is a solid chunk of steel. It's razor sharp, it's pointy as hell, it's well balanced, and it cost me $26. That's why you need to understand a thing or two about knives. If you know how to use a knife, then you also know how to fight with a knife. If you learn how to fight with a knife, then you're best at defending against a knife, because you understand what they can and cannot do and how dangerous they really are. I also purchased this because I think there could be situations where a lone protector or a person in a barricade situation might have to stand off a huge number of people. You know, you get more than 25 or 30 people on me, and even though I'm a great gunman, and I probably would have help since my family knows their way around them as well, you know, it starts, the mass numbers of people start to have a real effect on the potential outcome of any armed encounter. I suspect Antifa will be armed with things like this. Antifa has already produced their own knife with their logo on it. It's a concealable hideaway knife that they give to their people who go to these rallies so that they can have self-defense on them, or they can cut you with this, and it's easy to hide and stash. So you're going to be up against blade weapons. Now, that's going to turn out for them like it turned out in the Indiana Jones movie, where the guy swings the sword and Indy puts the bullwhip down, pulls the gun out, and just shoots him with a single, walks away. One of my favorite movie moments. However, what if there's 25 more guys behind him and they have swords? Now that 6-shooter doesn't seem so dominant, does it? Neither does your Glock handgun. Honestly, neither does your assault weapon. It starts to get hairy. Eventually you're going to have to reload. Even if you get 30 shots off and the 30 all hit the, what if there's 35? So how fast can you reload? I think you may, there's an argument here for why you should own 1,000 loaded magazines. Clint Smith has a video out there about why you should own 1,000 loaded magazines. So anyway, I just thought I would share this video with you about knives and swords and whatnot. And I hope none of this ever happens, never comes down to it. But you should familiarize yourself with blades. You should have at least a single good blade. And you should carry it on you all the time. Under 21 feet, a knife is equal to a gun. And the closer you get, the more superiority a knife has over a gun. And a knife in a bathroom stall or an elevator is superior to a gun. Don't anybody fool you about that. So, at any rate, God save the Republic. Down with Antifa.